tell you that this forum will run about an hour. Today's questions were prepared with input from community members. They're quite comprehensive. We won't be taking additional questions from our live audience for this event. The recording of the forum will be available on this same YouTube channel for later viewing. We want to give a special shout out to our live stream sponsor, the Sultan School District, with technical help from Dave Moon and a terrific team of students at turkpride.tv. This forum features candidates for Legislative District 21, which includes Painfield, Mukilteo, and Edmonds. Candidates for representative for Legislative District 21 are Strom Peterson and Amy Shaper for Washington State Rep Position 1, and Petra Bijaya and Lillian Ortiz Self for Washington State Representative Position 2. All candidates, as always, were invited. Amy Shaper is not participating in today's forum. We thank these candidates for running for office, for their willingness to serve if elected, and for their participation in this forum. The forum for candidates for Senate for District 21, featuring Janelle Cass and Marco Lias, was recorded earlier today. We remind our viewers that the League is nonpartisan, so we do not endorse or oppose candidates or parties. We do educate and support voters and the election process in our communities. The rules for forum participation were sent ahead of time to all the candidates, and they've agreed to engage in a respectful communication throughout the event. Let me briefly explain the question and answer period rules, and then we'll begin. Each candidate will have either 60 or 90 seconds to respond to each question. There will be one question that asks for a simple yes or no response and will not be timed. We'll state these changes clearly. We're using a countdown timer visible to all candidates, and time limits on answers will be strictly enforced. I will change the starting order for each question to ensure a fair sequence. The order for the first question will be Ms. Ortiz Self, and then Ms. Bijaya, and then Mr. Peterson. On the second question, Ms. Bijaya will lead off, and then Mr. Peterson and Ms. Ortiz Self, and so forth. Candidates have 60 seconds to respond to this first question, and I will ask Ms. Ortiz Self to lead off. 60 seconds. What qualifications and experience make you a strong candidate for this position?
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here. I guess I would say I get asked that a lot, and it's not that I hold 2 graduate degrees that qualify me for doing this work. It's not the years of experience that I have serving in volunteer, community, local, and state associations and government. I think what makes me the most qualified is that I am in the trenches in our schools every day and working. I'm a mental health counselor and a school counselor, and I am in the trenches every day listening to the stories of our families, listening to the stories of our youth and students. And I think that it's their voices and the work that I see every day in the trenches that qualify me the most to take their voices up to Olympia.
Thank you, Ms. Bijaya.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to be here tonight. I have an engineering degree in animal science from Romania. I graduated from Health Information Technology at Shoreline College. I've been a translator. I've been director and teacher for the first Christian kindergarten, worked in a nursing hospital setting, clinical. I helped my husband in a small avionics communication repair station. I'm working as a legal assistant and paralegal right now. And I lived in a communist country, which makes me prone to compare the two social, economic, and political systems with the one here. I've been a state delegate, precinct committee officer for the past 4 terms, ran for the same position in 2018.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Peterson. Mr. Peterson, you need to unmute.
I will unmute myself. That's the first foul of the night. Glad I was able to take that one. Thank you to the League. Thank you, Dr. Singh, for the introduction. I'm certainly looking forward to maybe getting back to the Black Box Theater next time around and have this pandemic somewhere in the rear view mirror. But it is such a great opportunity to talk about our democracy today. I think, it's similar to Ms. Ortiz-Self. I mean, I can certainly talk about the experience that I bring. That, I've been fortunate to represent the 21st District for a number of sessions now, and have been chair of the Housing and Human Services and Veterans Committee. And housing has really been the #1 issue that we've heard about on the door when we're out talking to voters. So that's part of it, but really it's the compassion that I think I was brought up with my mom and my grandfather. Just that dedication to service of the community. It's something that is deep inside me and something that I look forward to continuing.
Thank you. Ms. Bajia, please lead off on this next one. We'll change the timer to 90 seconds, so you'll have a minute and a half to respond. And tell us, if you would, what are your priorities for the next legislative session?
Okay, so one of my first priority would be education and parental rights, to demand excellency in our schools, and parents should be in charge of their children, not the government. I advocate for school vouchers where money follows the child, and to cut bureaucracy and high administrative salaries, ensure transparency in the curriculum. My second one would be to rebuild the economy, minimize government intrusion into private business, and lowering taxes or eliminate in some aspects, taxes. Overtaxation, inflation, drive people into poverty and out of their homes, and drive businesses out of our state. The third one would be to restore our basic constitutional rights, and especially the free speech and religious freedoms, where it includes medical choice, because we've seen with COVID that that took a pretty much hit. So these are my top priorities for now. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Mr. Peterson.
And thank you again. As I mentioned in my opening, chairing the Housing and Human Services and Veterans Committee has really sharpened my focus when it comes to the priorities that I think are important, not only to the 21st District, but to struggling families across the state. And that's really about affordable housing. We have a number of bipartisan bills that we're working on, things that will deal with building more affordable housing and fixing some of the regulations around that. Bills around what we can do about the skyrocketing rents. We've seen rents going up, 30, 40, 50% on families that are already struggling. One of the other issues that I've been proud of my work in the past, and it is unfortunately still a crisis, I was just on a call earlier today with the Snohomish Health District, is our opioid crisis. I've been incredibly proud of the work we've been able to accomplish in the legislature over the last few years, really leading the nation in some of our innovative thinking on ways to attack this crisis, and I will continue to do that. And finally, I have always run as a strong environmentalist. It's something I'm incredibly proud of here in the 21st District, as we're able to look out onto Puget Sound. We know that Puget Sound is in trouble, and we know that our orcas and our salmon population need the protection of the work that we can do in the state. So I will recommit to the work that we accomplished and that we will continue to accomplish.
Ms. Ortiz-Self.
Thank you. Thank you so much. As an educator and a mental health counselor, obviously, those are the expertise areas that I bring into this field. And we know that we are in dire need of both. I am introducing a bill to retain and recruit teachers to fill in the areas and the gaps that we have in our educational system, such as special education. We have a huge need, and as someone who works in the schools every day, the number of substitute teachers, and the lack of people filling the positions we can think of all the policies we want, but if we don't have qualified teachers in front of our students to do the job, it is meaningless. So that is a big area of focus, and behavioral mental health for our children continues to be, and our adults continue to be, a great need. And we're working on some areas around filling in those gaps as well. The economy, making sure that we continue to fund our transportation budget, our transportation projects, so that we can continue to grow our economy in a fair and safe, accessible way. And then lastly, I want to say that Ms. Bajaya mentioned medical freedom. I too believe in medical freedom. I want to make sure that I protect the rights for everyone to choose what between their doctors and their bodies as to what how they choose reproductive health, because that to me is a medical freedom as well. So that is definitely on my agenda as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson, you have the opportunity to take the lead on this next question. We're continuing with 90 seconds for the responses. We're going to ask about polarization in politics. Are you concerned about polarization in politics in Washington State? Why or why not?
Yeah, this is probably the number 2 question I get kind of after housing and some of the those issues is about partisanship in Washington. And, you know, I'm proud to say that about 95% of the bills that we pass in Olympia are bipartisan. And I always like to tell the story of my good friend, Tom Dent. We came into the legislature together. He represents the 13th district. He's a bison rancher. Politically, we probably couldn't be further apart. He's a very conservative. I'm very progressive. But at the end of the day, no matter what the argument may have been on the floor of the House, we'll shake each other's hands, look each other in the eye, and wish each other a good night and look for an opportunity to work together. Because I know he's in it for the right reason. I know he believes why he's there, and he knows why I'm in it. He knows that I'm in it for the right reason. So as we see all the rhetoric on the national level, and certainly we have our moments in Olympia, but we've been able to, I think, keep that at bay. I think we've been able to work together to pass some incredible legislation that it really helps as we learn to call it One Washington. What's good for Edmonds is going to be good for Olmec. What's good for Mukilteo is going to be good for, you know, areas of Garfield County. We can work together, and we've proven that, and I look forward to doing that some more.
Ms. Ortiz-Self, your thoughts?
Thank you. Yes, I think that even during our darkest times, we have found ways to be able to work together. I have had the privilege of serving in Olympia for 9 years now, and things definitely have changed in those 9 years. But we continue to find ways. This last session, I passed 2 early learning and human services bill that really truly affect our families, our foster children, and parental rights to be able to seek services and help instead of having children removed from the home and having that be absolutely the last resort. And I passed them with bipartisan, full bipartisan, 100% committee support from both sides. So I think we continue to find those areas where we can reach across the aisle and continue to work together. Education, mental health for our children, all of those are areas I think we can all agree on, and we have to figure out ways that we can come together to meet those needs because our constituents deserve that, and because we are in dire need. So I'm very proud to say that in the last few years I've had some big success and wins, and I think when that happens, bipartisanship happens, the win is for all of us, that we can move these agenda items forward.
Ms. Bajaya.
Yes, I think there is, I would say, polarization, political polarization in our state, at least. I think there should be more political balance in Olympia, as we've seen one party rule for way too long in our state. There's some issues like in school, it's too much, I would say, in indoctrination, and kids are brought to things that I I experienced back in the old country. So I would bring it more in the middle, and I know it can be worked together. I know that myself, I'm very open to work with every side, and I'm easy to work with. So I didn't work politically, on the other aisle like my two colleagues here, but definitely I am looking forward to look with the other, work with the other side, and very open to do so. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Let's turn our attention to climate change. Ms. Ortiz-Self, you'll lead off on this one, please. What, if anything, should be done to mitigate concerns about climate change in Washington State? Ms. Ortiz-Self, you need to unmute, please.
Sorry, thank you. I wasn't aware that I was next. I think everything needs to be done to mitigate climate change in the state of Washington in the United States. And I think that our young people are demanding that, and the future of our country, our world, our children's lives depend on it. So I have been a strong supporter of making sure that we look at equity as we look at climate change in all areas, from urban areas to rural areas, to mitigate wildfires, to mitigate issues that are happening in the urban areas to our rural areas. There are so many things around stormwater, around our air quality, around culverts that we continue to address and make gains in. Last year, we passed a transportation package that had a huge portion of that addressing environmental concerns. And I was very proud to take that vote, because this is critical. We are at a very critical stage, and we have to look at everything from fossil fuel. I sat on the transportation committee for a while where we looked at trying to look at everything we could to electrify our vehicles, address fossil fuel, those areas, address our culverts, our stormwater passages. All of those things are critical, and we need to keep making it a priority.
Ms. Bijaya.
Okay, so our state is moving towards severe measures to combat climate change. In Washington State, greenhouse gas emissions are less than 0.03%, which is insignificant. Policymakers and businesses are already taking steps to reduce emissions. Before imposing even more rules, that there should be a national consensus as well as international. Otherwise, we as residents are taking responsibilities for emissions that are taking outside our state. Reducing other forms of energy and pushing only for electrical would be inefficient. As well, will drive the cost of living even higher, and businesses would suffer the most, as well as the population that are most vulnerable. Climate Intelligence, which is an independent foundation of scientists, they said that there is no climate emergency, and that climate science should be less political and more scientific. So thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Peterson, your thoughts?
Thank you. Yeah, climate change is the existential threat of our times. And voters have asked us to take that head on. And I think Washington has been a great leader in the country to prove what we can do while we're combating climate change while growing an incredibly robust economy. Washington State has led the nation in working on cutting greenhouse gas emissions, as Ms. Ortiz-Self has said, on reducing our use of fossil fuels. Yet we're one of the fastest growing, if not the best economy in the country. We're creating jobs around areas such as biofuels. We're working on, we just opened up or working on opening up a great timber resource in Darrington to use cross-laminated timber. Just this past weekend, we had air quality alerts here in the 21st district because of wildfires. So Washington State, again, we've led the nation working with our Department of Natural Resources and the incredible work that Hillary Franz has done with our forests to clean up our forests, to reduce that threat of these catastrophic forest fires, even though we're seeing longer and drier and hotter summers. So there's work to be done, and I'm incredibly proud of the work that we've already done, but we know that we can do more. And again, we can lead the nation. We can set the example to show that it can be done.
Ms. Bejea, if you'll take the lead, please. We'll be talking about violent firearms incidents next. What do you believe are the 3 best ideas for reducing the likelihood of violent firearms incidents in our state?
Okay, I should start first with the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's very dear to me because I lived in a country where we didn't have these rights. One of the, when talking about gun violence, we should address criminal elements. And that would be like gangs, thieves, you know, those that steal firearms, drug lords. These are most likely to have violent crimes. Another area we should look at is suicide and mental health. And also, I would promote education and training in firearms, where kids in schools should learn safety, and that's, I mean, my opinion is that I would bring elective classes in schools where kids should approach the firearms, you know, and should learn how to be comfortable around them. This way, they will not be curious, and they will not be approached by the criminal elements when, you know, because of curiosity. Also, it should be a patriotic thing, because everybody would learn to know how to handle a firearm, and in case of something.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bejea.
Yeah, thank you.
Pearson.
Thank you for this. This is another incredibly important issue, and something that we have done great work again in the state of Washington. When I first entered the legislature, we were ranked around 40th in gun safety measures as a state. Right now, we're 10th. We're in the top 10 in the nation of having laws that are keeping people safe. So we've already done some great work, especially around extreme risk protection orders, making sure that people that are threatening their loved ones or threatening a spouse, we have that opportunity through the court system to take those guns away. That has saved lives, and that there is scientific proof. Last year we passed the ban on the sale and manufacture of high capacity magazines, a bill that I sponsored for a number of years, and incredibly proud of my seatmate, Senator Leas, for sponsoring it this year. And again, that has scientifically been proven to reduce the catastrophic effects of mass shooting. And finally, I will introduce again, as I have for the past 5 or 6 years, I think, along with Attorney General Bob Ferguson, the ban on the sale and manufacture of assault weapons. We lived through the Mukilteo shooting, when a young man bought an assault weapon and within a day shot up a party and killed many of his friends.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Ms. Ortiz-Self, your thoughts on this question?
I want to say clearly that I do believe in the rights, in the privilege of having guns. I don't think anybody in our any of my colleagues are fighting the right to own guns. I think what is really important is to fight for the safety and the common sense use and the responsibility that it takes to own a firearm. And for those that would rather risk someone's life than to have the inconvenience of having to take a class or to wait a couple days for a background check or to be limited to the number of guns or bullets that a gun can shoot in a minute. It breaks my heart to think that would be the argument, because we are losing people every day because we continue to fight for common sense gun safety laws that will allow us to keep guns but it will allow us to protect other people. So things like, background checks for gun shows and continuing to the mental health background checks and the waiting periods, age limits, all of those things we need to continue to look at that, because we need to continue to have a responsible response to the violence that continues to happen because of this weapon.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson, you'll have the opportunity to go first in this question about behavioral health care. In your opinion, is there sufficient access to...
Oops, you muted yourself.
So I did. Thank you for pointing it out.
It wasn't just me.
Let me start again. I apologize. In your opinion, is there sufficient access to behavioral health care in Snohomish County and across the state of Washington? If yes, would you recommend any modifications to the programs? If no, what would you prioritize to increase access?
Yeah, the cold hard answer to that is no, perhaps with some colorful words before or after it. We have done, in this country, we have underfunded mental health care for at least 50 years, and we're paying the price. We're seeing it on the streets. We're seeing it in our schools. We're seeing it in the workplace, where people are just suffering with depression and anxiety and fears. So we have made record investments in behavioral and mental health here in Snohomish County. Snohomish County has been an incredible leader when it comes to making these smart investments and trying to get people and therapists and doctors out to where they need to be. But again, we don't have enough professionals. One of the things that we did a couple of years ago is, we're starting to build a hospital with the University of Washington specifically dedicated to mental health, not a hospital, a university campus specifically dedicated to mental health professionals. Of course, that's just starting to be built, so we have a ways to go before that really comes to fruition. But we're making sure that we're investing in more school counselors, like my colleague Lillian Ortiz-Self, to make sure that we have more counselors in our schools. We made huge investments last year in making that happen. But we need to get out into the community as much as we can. We have failed our community over the last few decades.
Ms. Ortiz-Self, your thoughts?
Yes, thank you. I agree with Representative Peterson. We have made some really good investments, and we have so much catching up to do. So, I'm in the schools when the children return back after 2 years of a pandemic and a virtual world, and I see their struggle and their anxiety and the depression that we've all gone through with this pandemic. That just highlights what was already there, a shortage of mental health professionals available. I try to refer to child psychiatrists, for example. It is so difficult to find a child psychiatrist without waiting 3 to 4 months to get a child in for services. And I know because I make those referrals and I look for those resources. We know that substance abuse, again, is rampant and dire. And we know that there's a lot of co-diagnosis with substance abuse and mental health. And yet, catching up with the demand, we know that our mental health professionals are not paid what they should be paid. And as a consequence, we lose them. We lose them into private practice instead of into our centers where they're serving the masses, again, because of the shortage. So Snohomish County is leading the way in many ways, and yet, like all the parts of Washington state, we still have a way to go. I'm very proud of our 988 number that was put in place, but we've got more work to do.
Ms. Bijaya.
Yes, so mental health goes many times hand in hand with drug addiction, and we have too many drugs on our streets that need to be under control, especially hard drugs, heavy drugs like fentanyl. These drugs, we need tougher laws on this, and we need police to let them do their job. Also, this goes hand in hand with homelessness, and while we are being compassionate about it, we also need to have tougher rules. Yes, in Snohomish County, we do have some programs in regards to mental health, but definitely it's not enough. And we need more facilities, and especially full staffing for these facilities that are professionals, and we need competent workforce for these mental health facilities. Yes, we need to take care of this of the addiction and recovery. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Ms. Ortiz-Self, please take the lead on this next question about affordable housing. How would you propose to make housing or rent more affordable in our area?
We have been, thank you for that question. We definitely are looking at a comprehensive approach to this. There isn't an easy answer. So we've been looking at multiple facets like ADU units, mother-in-law suites, zoning laws. How do we make sure that that we protect our renters while protecting our landlords? So we're not advocating for landlords going without payments. We've put things in place that during the pandemic that reimbursed our landlords for extending time to their renters. But I think it takes all of that, right? It takes making sure that that we look at it comprehensively as far as everything from how much laws that affect our single moms. One of the things that we know about housing and homelessness and the harsh reality of finding another place is once you get evicted. One eviction on your record, and it's so difficult to find affordable housing anywhere. And if you find it, they charge you 3 times as much. So looking at some of that prevention work as well is part of the comprehensive view that we need to take.
Ms. Bajaya.
Yes, in regards to affordability and rent, we have to look at property taxes, first of all. They are way too high, and especially retired people, they cannot afford, they are driven out of their own homes. We need to lower these taxes in order to lower renting and make all this housing affordable. Right. I mean, I talk to a lot of people, especially elderly, and they cannot afford to stay in their own homes. A lot of people become homeless because of high taxation on property. And not to say that this next year will be even more, because talking to the department, Snohomish County Department for Housing, they said they increased value of the housing with at least 38%. So next year we will be looking at even more taxation on property. So this will raise rents and will make affordability even lower. So yeah, to me, it will definitely take a look at the property taxes and lower it. Thank you.
Mr. Peterson, your thoughts?
Thank you. And just as kind of a quick, maybe public service announcement, Snohomish County and really every county in the state of Washington has some great programs for the elderly when it comes to their property taxes if they can't afford it. We have a very robust program here in Snohomish County, and I know they do throughout the state. So if you are watching this and are concerned, please contact the county, and they will put you into contact with some of these great programs. But this is the number one issue that we see at the door, and I've talked to colleagues around the state. This is absolutely the number one issue that people are concerned about, and it's Not only it's every aspect of housing. We're about 250,000 units short across the state. We need to build more housing. We need to make sure that a family that, as Ms. Bajaya said, somebody that may want to move out of their single family home that they've lived in for 30 years can find a small apartment or a condo in their community and don't have to move miles and miles away. We want to make sure that a young family can move into a community that's close to their work, so they don't have to commute and be stuck in traffic, adding to issues around climate change and really quality of life. So we need to build more housing. We also need to take on the issue around rents. I had a simple bill to just try to give people 6 months notice if they have an extreme rent increase. Unfortunately, we couldn't get that passed, but we'll try again with something like that.
In a related question, talking about development, Ms. Bajaya, if you could go first on the answer to this one, what are your ideas for ensuring that sufficient infrastructure is built or planned for in surrounding areas to support proposed development?
Okay, just an example. The house that I live in, just around me, they're building 43 houses. So I'm surrounded with a new development right now. The biggest problem here in the area is transportation. So when talking development, we're looking at transportation, we're looking at infrastructure that is not there. So the biggest problem right now is transportation. We're looking at apartments, exiting I-5, and people are stuck at the lights, for good 20, 30 minutes just to exit towards, the freeways. And I would say that that's the major problem right now we have and we encounter. Also, the biggest problem we would have, we're looking at common transportation like buses and other things, but a lot of people are still using cars, and because it's more convenient. And again, to me, that's the biggest issue right now: transportation for the infrastructure.
Mr. Peterson, your thoughts?
Yes, thank you. Washington is very fortunate to have something that's called the Public Works Assistance Account, and that's an incredible fund of money through the capital budget, which I had previously been vice chair on, still serve on the capital budget, that gets money out to our local communities, especially our smaller towns and rural communities, to make sure that they can put in that infrastructure, to make sure that they can put in the new water main, make sure that they can put in the new sewage pipes. This is not the most exciting, thing, happening in Olympia, but when it really comes to that infrastructure to make sure that we can build the houses that I spoke about earlier, it is critically important. So we've been this is such an innovative idea that many other states are looking at what we've been doing to copy those ideas. But we also can't ignore the environmental impacts. As Ms. Bajaya said, transportation is one of the issues. And if we keep people in their single, in their vehicle, we know that the impacts of not only climate change, but the impacts of traffic will be just continue to add on to people's daily burden. So we need to make the investments, as we have been, into bus service, into other modes of transportation, into Sound Transit. Super excited what that's going to bring to Snohomish County. So we have the ways to invest in this infrastructure, but we need to work more closely with our cities and counties to make sure that they're allowing us to do that.
Ms. Ortiz-Self.
Yes, thank you. I would say, we passed one of our most robust transportation packages last year, and in the years that I've served on transportation, we really tried to look at multimodal, a package that does everything from bicycle lanes to mass transit to carpool lanes, everything that we can do to be environmentally responsible, but also to move people and move goods. because we need to do that. But we also looked at areas such as our parks and areas that needed green space, and how do we capitalize on that? How do we protect certain areas that are good for our environment and good for people? And how do we do it in an equitable way so that all communities have clean water, clean green space, etc. And so those are things that are really important, and we need to keep doing that. Unfortunately, it costs money, and it's everybody wants this to happen, but nobody wants to pay for it. And so there's the struggle, right? How do we continue to invest in an infrastructure that replaces bridges, that replaces that gives us access in a more efficient way to keep our economy moving? It's all ties in, and it's very critical. And I was really happy to see us pass such a multimodal package last year.
Mr. Peterson, please take the lead on this next question about our taxation system. Do you believe the taxing system in Washington state is equitable and sufficient to meet the needs of the state and local communities? If not, what changes would you propose?
Sure. Well, we have the most upside down tax system of any state in the country. Our friends to the east, Idaho, they have an income tax. We don't. That is an issue that's going to have to really come from the people. But until then, we do have to find ways to right size our tax system, and we've been doing that work. We're looking at a tax on the sale of extreme wealth, of capital gains. So say if anybody on this call happens to have a Picasso in their attic, and you sell that, then that might be one of those things where we're able to do an extreme wealth tax upon the sale of that painting. But we know that working people in Washington are shouldered with an incredible tax burden, and we need to change that. As a former small business owner, I know that our business tax system is complicated, to say the least. And we've been doing a great job again in Olympia with the leadership of so many of my colleagues, a bipartisan effort to go around the state and find ideas from people from east to west, north to south, about how to fix our tax system. And a lot of that is looking at simplifying our B&O taxes. A lot of that is looking at better ways to tax the extreme wealth of people like Jeff Bezos and others that live in this state. So we need to make sure that we're taking the burden off working families.
Thank you. Ms. Ortiz-Self.
Yes, thank you very much. I was really happy that during the pandemic, we were able to put in some relief for our small businesses and business in that B&O tax. They got hit very hard during this difficult time. But like Representative Peterson said, our working families are hit very hard. We have an upside down system that really favors those with a lot of money who pay a lot less than our middle class and lower income communities. And there's something wrong with that. Our 1% should not pay less than the rest of us. And so I do support a capital gains tax on the 1% because it's about fairness, and it's about justice for everybody. And someone who is working 2 jobs should never be paying more taxes than someone who is in the 1%. So that is something I definitely support. Definitely need to hear from our constituents on other reforms. But one of the things we've heard loudly is property taxes. We're trying really hard not to raise property taxes. And if they get increased, to increase it on those that are $2 million on up, so that our middle class, we can continue to protect our middle class, because that is dire. It is upside down, and our middle class is taking the burden.
Ms. Bejea, your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I think we have a government problem. It's too big. It's administrative heavy with out of control spending. We have to reduce bureaucracy and have accountable spending, cut the unnecessary and unjustified programs. Everybody's talking about taxing the rich, but all those taxes, in fact, is going to go back on the middle class. and we are taxed to death, pretty much. I mean, many times I feel like we have taxation without representation. The main problem, cut spending, cut government spending. I mean, we have to rein that spending like all of us. I mean, if we middle class can reduce our spending and can manage ourselves to how much we can extend, so government can. Thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Ortiz-Self, let's talk about access to abortion for a moment. Would you support making any changes to existing state laws or to the state constitution regarding access to abortion? Why or why not? If so, what changes would you propose?
I am really proud to say that Washington State has fought very hard in the last 10 years to make sure that we have the protection for our communities to be able to choose reproductive rights, and not only reproductive rights, but health care for everybody. We fought hard to make sure that regardless of your gender, that everyone gets the absolute right to medical care, that women get the right to choose over their bodies, that we have options, that a woman and her doctor make those decisions. We fought very hard to protect those rights, and I will fight really hard to keep them. We are one of the states that lead in this area, and I'm very proud of that. I never thought that my daughter would have less rights than I did. And I will fight for that. And I will fight for healthcare for all, and for birth control, and for everybody. And I am very proud of the fact that we've done that, and we've hit it with insurance companies. We've hit it with public insurance. We've hit it across genders. We've hit it across trying to be as equitable as we possibly can. And that's made us one of the leaders in the United States on women's reproductive rights. And I'll keep fighting for that.
Ms. Bijaya, your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, overturning Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court practically corrected the wrong and sent this issue to the states. Washington State has abortion pretty much secured through legislation, but the abortion activists keep this issue top and center, before taxes, before crime, education, or poverty. Just to score political points. As a representative, pretty much you represent people, so we represent their choice. It's not a decision of ours, it's the decision of the people. So unless this decision is overturned by the vote of majority, I would just accept, and follow the rule, the Constitution. So. I am pro-life. With exceptions, when a mother's life is in danger, incest or rape. But again, as a representative, I would represent the people, and I would go with majority. Thank you.
And Mr. Peterson.
Thank you. I am incredibly proud to stand with so many Washingtonians and constituents here in the 21st District for a woman's right to choose their health care and make their own health care decisions. As far as the Constitution goes, I would support amending the Constitution to enshrine that right in the Washington State Constitution. But beyond that, we also have to look at some of the investments we need to make. We know that there will be women coming across the border from Idaho and other states seeking medical access. And we need to make sure that we can take care of our friends and neighbors and our fellow Americans when they need the medical care that they desire that might be illegal in their state. So we need to look at making those kind of monetary investments, as well as making sure that we are supporting education in our schools to make sure that kids understand about sex education, about comprehensive education, to make sure that they can make the decisions that are right for them. Because if we give people the right tools to make the decisions, they can make the right decisions. But we need to make sure that we are giving them that kind of comprehensive education. And again, making sure that women have the choice and have the right to their own healthcare decisions.
Ms. Bajaya, the next question will be about healthcare systems, and we'll ask that you go first. As independent healthcare systems merge with religious healthcare systems, do you have concerns about any resulting limited healthcare options? What actions, if any, would you recommend?
I believe in open market. Having this type of hospital, religious hospital, we have incredible staff, very compassionate, lots of volunteers. And with the health system that we have in Washington State and many facilities and hospitals, people can choose the ones they can go to. I think open market will solve the problem if there would be any, but I would not change, the hospitals, unless they're state, of course, how they run their own business. So open market definitely will take care of that. Thank you.
Mr. Peterson, your thoughts?
Thank you. This is a great question that really gets into layers that can be tricky, because we are seeing, and not only here in Washington, but around the country, the consolidation of hospitals that are being formerly independent hospitals, and sometimes even public hospitals, that are being bought by religious institutions. And that can be dangerous. Right here in Edmonds, there was threat that the women's health care that was happening up at Stevens Hospital, what used to be Stevens Hospital, was going to be shut down and moved. So people in our town, in our area, women were not going to be able to have the easier access to the health care that they rely on. They would have to go to Everett, or they would have to go somewhere else. Fortunately, there was kind of a public outcry, and they stopped that from happening. But we have to make sure that if hospitals are serving the public, that hospitals are serving all of the public. And that means that hospitals have to provide the healthcare that is needed to save a woman's life, to save a child's life, to save anybody's life. Hospitals can't make decisions based on their religious beliefs when it comes to saving somebody's life. If they are in the business of saving lives, they need to be in that business for every one of our constituents.
Ms. Ortiz-Self?
Thank you. I think our responsibility as legislators is to make sure that all our constituents and really all Washingtonians, because we talk a lot about our constituents, but the reality is when we're up there, we're voting for laws that affect every Washingtonian. And I think it's really important that every Washingtonian have access to good quality medical care. And that means that they should not have to drive 3 hours to get it. If there's a hospital in their area, they should be able to access it for the medical care that they deserve and that they need, especially in an emergency crisis. I think any health facility that takes state dollars in any way, that benefits from, wants to adhere to advantages, whether they're tax credits, whether they're Medicaid dollars, state health care dollars, any public dollars in any way, needs to serve the every Washingtonian. And they should not be allowed to pick and choose which ones and take our state dollars, because our dollars, our policies that give breaks are for the masses. They're really to serve all Washingtonians, and we are responsible for making sure that that's exactly what happens.
Thank you. We've come to the yes or no question that I referenced early on. It's related to ranked choice voting. Mr. Peterson, you'll go first. This won't be timed. We're looking for just a yes or a no response. This question is specific to voting options in counties, cities, and voting districts, not statewide elections. And this is the question. Do you support ranked choice voting as a voting option in jurisdictions and districts? Please just answer yes or no. Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Ortiz-Self?
Yes.
Ms. Bejea?
No.
And now we've come to our very last question. The timer will reset the time to allow 60 seconds for the response. This is an opportunity for you to kind of bat cleanup on what you've heard and said throughout the evening. And the question is this: what additional issues or information would you like to bring to the attention of the community? Ms. Ortiz-Self, please lead off.
Thank you. I just would like to remind everyone that our jobs, and I remind myself of this, that my job is to make sure that I represent all Washingtonians. And that means our most vulnerable, those that often cannot donate, those that often are not in the spotlight, but those families, those children that are often ignored. And that is something that I'm very passionate about. So I work hard for those who need mental health care and substance abuse care, for those who are homeless, for those who are struggling with addiction. I work hard for our foster children and our human services, because I feel a sense of responsibility, because I truly believe that we as a state and as a country are only as strong as our weakest link. I truly believe that. And I believe when we try to help some achieve greatness while leaving behind others or stepping on the backs of others, we lose. We lose as a country, we lose as a state. And so I feel this great sense of responsibility to make sure that I am representing everybody, and that includes those that often don't have a voice.
Thank you. Ms. Bejea, feel free to take a few extra seconds. Our electronic timer doesn't do those switches very efficiently. If you need 5 or 10 more seconds, talk away.
Okay, so it wasn't really talked about education, and I would say that a majority of Washingtonians favor private and homeschooling, and I would say 71% of Washingtonians. Also, not a lot hasn't been touched on crime and safety of our communities. We definitely should take a look at that and reverse the bad policies that our legislature had in regards to police. Also, we need to bring political balance to Olympia and have our representatives listen to people. In fact, they are representing all of us. And I am dedicated to this position. As I am running not for myself, but to represent the middle class, the rest of us. So thank you so much for the opportunity given to me.
It has been our pleasure. Mr. Peterson, again, take a few extra seconds if you want them, and you get the final word.
Great, and thank you again to the League and AAUW and so many of the sponsors and the Sultan School District. This is really about democracy, and this is one of the reasons that I am continue to be committed to this work, because our democracy is in peril. And thank you for the work that you do to educate so many people, to get them excited about civics, and to really understand what it means. But we can see on the national level and the rhetoric that we see when it comes to election denying and conspiracy theories, that we're in trouble as a nation. And I think this is the level of government where we can set the ship right. And I think we've been doing that. As I said earlier, 95% of our bills are bipartisan. We can work together. We can create that model. But we can only do it with the help of so many people in the community, like the League, like our schools, like anybody whose door I knock on. So thank you again for this work. Let's get out there and vote, and let's make sure that our democracy is strong.
Well, you're more than welcome, all three of you. It's been our pleasure to talk with you this evening. The League and the Forum Coalition appreciates these candidates for joining us and for running for office. A recording of this forum and others will be available on the League of Women Voters of Snohomish County website and YouTube channel. You can find links at LWV Snoho, that's LWVSNOHO.org. We encourage you to explore additional information about these and all the candidates on the ballot this fall. The Snohomish County voter pamphlet is being mailed as we speak. That mailing started on October 8th. Vote411.org, sponsored by the League of Women Voters, is another good source for nonpartisan voting information. Ballots will be mailed on October 20th, and Election Day is November 8th. Please be a voter. We thank the Snohomish County Forum Coalition members and offer kudos to the League of Women Voters team behind the scenes who made this forum run smoothly. These include candidate coordinator Michelle Fry, backup moderator Nadine Shanti, timer and backup timer Phyllis Bush and Michelle Fry, and League tech support Karen Crowley. And a special thank you again to David Moon and his team of students at TurkPride.tv at the Sultan School District for their excellent technical support. And of course, thanks to all of you for listening and watching. This concludes our candidate forum.